There's a place in America where survival isn't guaranteed, where violence erupts without warning, and where corruption runs deeper than anyone wants to admit. A place where drone deliveries aren't Amazon packages, but loaded firearms, where prison guards become drug traffickers, and where gang wars claim lives with terrifying regularity. This isn't some fictional nightmare. This is Georgia's prison system, widely considered the most dangerous correctional network in the United States. With over 113 murders since 2022, rampant gang control, and corruption scandals that would make your head spin, Georgia's prisons represent everything that can go catastrophically wrong behind bars. The federal government has launched investigations, families have lost loved ones in unspeakable ways, and inmates navigate a daily existence where making it to tomorrow requires strategic thinking, physical prowess, and sometimes just dumb luck. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on America's deadliest prison system, exposing the violence, the corruption, and the brutal reality of life inside Georgia's concrete hell. The drone gun murder.
Who got his hands on a gun and killed a civilian food service worker with whom he was having a relationship with.
June 2024 brought one of the most shocking incidents in American prison history. An inmate managed to orchestrate a murder using a firearm delivered by drone, a scenario that sounds like science fiction, but represents the terrifying reality of Georgia's security failures. The shooter had been serving 9 years for manslaughter, with his earliest possible release date set for 2043. But waiting wasn't his style. Working with an accomplice on the outside, he arranged for a drone to fly over the prison facility, carrying a loaded handgun. The drone hovered above the prison yard before releasing its deadly cargo, which the inmate quickly retrieved. His target wasn't a rival gang member or someone who had crossed him. It was a civilian food service worker with whom he'd been having a relationship. After shooting her dead in cold blood, he turned the weapon on himself, ending both lives in an act of violence that highlighted catastrophic security vulnerabilities. This murder marked the second death of a Georgia prison staff member in less than 12 months, exposing a pattern of danger that prison employees face daily. How does a correctional facility allow drone deliveries of firearms? The answer lies in understaffing, inadequate surveillance technology, and a system stretched beyond its breaking point. This wasn't just a failure of security, it was a failure of the entire Georgia correctional infrastructure. Georgia's prison crisis by the numbers.
Georgia is the 8th most populous state in the United States and has the 4th highest prison population.
Understanding Georgia's prison nightmare requires looking at the staggering statistics. Georgia ranks as the 8th most populous state in America, but holds the 4th highest prison population nationally, a disproportionate number that reveals aggressive incarceration policies. The state operates 34 separate facilities housing over 50,000 inmates, with 25,500 of those prisoners classified as violent offenders. That's half the population behind bars for crimes involving serious violence. Currently, 9,600 inmates are serving life sentences with no possibility of release, while over 40 await execution on death row. Since 2022, Georgia's prisons have recorded 113 murders, 113 lives lost inside facilities supposedly designed to maintain order and safety. This year alone has already seen 44 homicides, meaning violence is accelerating rather than decreasing. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent sons, brothers, fathers, and in some cases, innocent staff members caught in the crossfire of institutional failure. Compare these statistics to other state systems with similar populations, and Georgia's numbers are shockingly high. California, with nearly 4 times Georgia's population, reports fewer annual prison homicides. Texas, known for its tough-on-crime approach, maintains better security despite housing more inmates. Georgia's prison system isn't just dangerous, it's statistically the deadliest correctional network in the nation. The guard who became a hitman. Another prison staff member met their end not through random violence, but through calculated murder orchestrated by an inmate with help from a corrupt guard. This correctional officer had been on an inmate's payroll, smuggling contraband and providing special privileges in exchange for cash payments. The arrangement worked smoothly until another female officer refused to continue moving drugs for the same inmate. That refusal triggered a murder-for-hire plot that would shock even hardened investigators. The inmate paid his corrupted guard to kill the officer who had stopped cooperating. The guard attempted the hit but faced unexpected complications. Desperate and facing potential exposure, the inmate then contracted a second hit through different channels, targeting yet another officer. This time, the hired killer made a catastrophic mistake. He murdered the wrong person entirely, killing an innocent individual who had no connection to the prison or the drug operation. The inmate now sits in court awaiting the death penalty, while investigators untangle a web of corruption involving multiple staff members and a sophisticated criminal network operating from inside prison walls. This case exposed how inmates with resources can turn guards into accomplices, then into assassins. When those sworn to maintain order become instruments of murder, the entire system collapses from within. I'm doing a $100 Amazon gift card giveaway to celebrate when this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers. No action is required to enter. I'll randomly pick a winner once we hit the milestone. If you want to follow the journey or see the winner announcement, feel free to subscribe. The staffing disaster.
Knife. The Georgia prison guard job has a high number of job vacancies due to its low.
Understanding Georgia's prison crisis requires examining its staffing catastrophe. Prison guard positions in Georgia start at $40,000 annually, roughly $19 per hour. That's barely above minimum wage in many states for one of America's most dangerous jobs. In 2012, Georgia employed 6,500 correctional officers across its facilities. Within just 10 years, that number plummeted 60% to barely 2,500 guards in 2022. The consequences of this staffing collapse are catastrophic. With so few guards supervising tens of thousands of inmates, control becomes impossible. Entire cell blocks go unsupervised for hours. Fights erupt without intervention. Contraband flows freely because nobody's watching. Desperate inmates exploit this chaos, while those trying to serve their time quietly become collateral damage. The low pay combined with extremely dangerous working conditions creates a revolving door of employment. Guards quit after weeks or months, unable to handle the stress, violence, and constant threat to their lives for poverty-level wages. Those who stay often turn to corruption as a way to supplement their meager income, accepting bribes from inmates who pay far more than the state. It's a vicious cycle. Low pay drives away good officers, creating security gaps that desperate inmates exploit, which makes the job even more dangerous, causing more officers to quit. Georgia's prison system isn't just understaffed, it's fundamentally broken at the most basic operational level. The contraband economy, understaffing created opportunities, and inmates with resources exploited them ruthlessly. Guards desperate for extra income found themselves approached with offers they struggled to refuse. Inmates pay correctional officers between $1,500 and upwards per delivery of contraband, phones, drugs, food, even designer clothing. Since 2018, Georgia has fired 360 prison staff members for involvement in smuggling operations, sexual assault, and extortion schemes. That's 360 employees in just 6 years who were caught. The actual number involved but never discovered is likely far higher. One particularly brazen case involved a correctional officer attempting to smuggle 8 cell phones and 2.6 pounds of methamphetamine to an inmate in exchange for $10,000. She was caught during a routine security check, subsequently convicted, and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. But individual guards aren't the only corrupted officials. In one shocking case, a prison warden, the highest-ranking official at his facility, was caught receiving over $44,000 from various inmates to facilitate drug smuggling and other illegal operations. When even wardens become drug traffickers, what hope exists for maintaining order? The massive 2023 contraband bust. In 2023, Georgia prison officials conducted comprehensive cell searches across multiple facilities, determined to uncover the extent of contraband infiltration. What they discovered was staggering beyond belief. The searches yielded 6,300 cell phones, devices that allow inmates to run criminal operations, coordinate attacks, intimidate witnesses, and maintain gang hierarchies from inside prison walls. They also confiscated 1,432 pills of various types, 242 pounds of cocaine, 300 pounds of marijuana, and 7,169 pounds of methamphetamine, fentanyl, and heroin combined. Investigators calculated the total street value of seized contraband at $4,320,000, over $4 million worth of drugs inside supposedly secure facilities. This massive haul represents just what officials found during targeted searches. The drugs and phones that avoided detection likely equal or exceed what was confiscated. The contraband economy inside Georgia's prisons rivals mid-sized drug trafficking operations on the streets. Inmates with access to phones can coordinate smuggling operations, place orders, arrange payments, and maintain connections to outside criminal networks. One inmate used a smuggled cell phone to scam Charles Schwab Bank out of $1 million through an elaborate fraud scheme. After his release, federal authorities arrested him, adding an 11-year federal sentence to his existing state time. The contraband problem isn't just about drugs. It's about inmates maintaining criminal enterprises that generate millions while supposedly incarcerated. Gang control of Georgia prisons.
Department of Corrections would document a total of 15,000 gang members, with the most well-known gangs being 4,700 Bloods.
Georgia's Department of Corrections documents approximately 15,000 verified gang members among its prison population. The three dominant forces are 4,700 Bloods, 3,900 gangster disciples, and 1,400 Crips. But dozens of smaller gangs also operate within the system. These aren't loose affiliations. They're highly organized hierarchies with strict codes, territories, and enforcement mechanisms. Gangs control specific housing units, dictating who can enter, where people sit, and how resources are distributed. They operate sophisticated smuggling networks, extortion rackets, and protection schemes. They enforce their rules through violence, with beatings and stabbings serving as warnings to those who violate gang protocols. The federal government's Department of Justice launched a comprehensive investigation in October 2024 into Georgia's prison conditions, with gang control being a primary concern. When gangs effectively run facilities that the state supposedly controls, the fundamental concept of corrections collapses. Inmates align with gangs not always by choice, but by necessity. Remaining neutral or vulnerable means becoming a target. The murder of Tristan McKee. Gang control creates environments of targeted brutality, especially for vulnerable populations. In 2022, 24-year-old Tristan McKee, an openly gay and transgender inmate with documented mental health issues and history of suicidal ideations, was placed in a housing unit controlled by Bloods and gangster disciples who were openly hostile toward LGBT inmates. Tristan immediately recognized the danger and repeatedly told guards he needed to be moved to protective custody, warning them his life was in danger. Guards ignored his pleas, leaving him trapped in a hostile environment. The attack came swiftly and brutally. Gang members descended on Tristan, beating him severely as he tried to flee. They stabbed him 12 times, including a horrific stab wound directly into his eye. Prison guards responded 45 minutes after the attack began. 45 minutes during which Tristan bled out on the cell block floor, while inmates watched and guards remained absent. Hours after the attack, Tristan was pronounced dead. Tragically, he had only 1 year remaining on his sentence. 1 more year until freedom, until safety, until the chance to rebuild his life away from the brutality he endured. His death represents not just gang violence, but systemic failure. Guards who ignored warnings, housing assignments that placed vulnerable inmates in danger zones, and a culture where LGBT prisoners face targeted violence without protection. Sexual violence epidemic. Beyond gang violence and murder, Georgia's prisons face another crisis that authorities are reluctant to discuss: rampant sexual assault. In 2021 alone, Georgia documented 702 sexual abuse incidents against inmates, nearly 2 sexual assaults every single day. The majority of these victims belong to the LGBT community, who face targeted sexual violence from both gang members and predatory inmates. Gang-controlled housing units often systematically target LGBT prisoners with physical violence and sexual assault to force them out of gang territories. With inadequate protective custody options and overwhelmed staff unable to respond to threats, LGBT inmates find themselves trapped in environments where sexual violence is routine and escape is impossible. The 702 reported incidents represent only cases where victims came forward. Many assaults go unreported due to fear of retaliation, distrust of authorities, or the hopelessness that reporting will change anything. When prison officials ignore pleas for protective custody, as they did with Tristan McKee, vulnerable inmates have nowhere to turn. Freedom isn't guaranteed. Georgia's prisons represent everything that can go catastrophically wrong in American corrections. Understaffing creates chaos. Chaos breeds corruption. Corruption enables violence. Violence becomes routine. And in that cycle, lives are lost, both inmates and staff, to a system that has fundamentally collapsed. The federal investigation launched in October 2024 may eventually force reforms, but for the 50,000 inmates currently behind Georgia's walls, help can't come soon enough. Every day brings new dangers: gang conflicts that erupt without warning, torture that continues for days before discovery, sexual assaults that authorities ignore, and corrupt guards who facilitate murders for cash. Surviving Georgia's prison system requires constant vigilance, strategic alliances, physical capability, and sometimes just the luck to be in the right place when violence explodes elsewhere. Even then, making it home isn't guaranteed. Some inmates enter for minor offenses and leave in body bags. Others lose years or decades to a system more focused on containing bodies than rehabilitating human beings. Georgia's prisons don't just punish crime. They create environments where survival itself becomes the sentence. This is America's deadliest prison system, where freedom is never guaranteed and tomorrow is never promised. And for the thousands trapped inside, that reality is far more terrifying than any fictional horror story could ever be.